Greens have decided to start to go after public schools, suggesting they get way too much funding. Here is somebody who would like to be in a power-sharing agreement with the Labor Party.
Minister, JobKeeper for wealthy private schools has really compounded the vast inequality of public funding for schools.
James, wealthy private schools, should they have been getting JobKeeper at all, considering, of course, that kids weren't being pulled out of school?
Of course schools should have been getting JobKeeper, because it was about, the whole point of JobKeeper was keeping people in jobs. And the whole point of the government's response to COVID was keeping Australians safe. But what we're seeing from the Greens is class warfare. What we're seeing from the future coalition partners of the Labor Party is absolute class warfare, because the Greens want to bash up the private schools, forgetting that most private schools are actually bread and butter private schools, are normal private schools, like Catholic schools, Anglican schools, who struggle to get by just as much as a state school does. And of course the Greens are playing around with figures, because guess what? State schools get more money than private schools. But the main thing here, it's class warfare from the Greens, 101.
What do you reckon, Tom?
Well, I think, Mehreen Faruqi, I'm sympathetic to, I guess, keeping a close watch on how much we spend on private schools versus public schools. I went to a public school myself, and they need the money. I take James's point that a lot of private schools are not the elite private schools that people stereotype them for. But the Greens' argument there wasn't that strong, because they're focusing on the growth in spending. So when you look at the growth in the last 10 years, and this is something that's become a focus of the Save Our Schools campaign, it's a massive, much greater growth to the private schools. But as James pointed out, when you look at actually the total spend, it's still far more per student per year that goes to public schools. So, look, I think we've more or less got it in the right place, but I am sympathetic to keeping a keen eye on how much we spend on private school funding, particularly the elite schools, less so the not so elite schools.